Hello, folks. Welcome back. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. News 24's Amanda Koza reports that DIRCO Director General Zane Dangor has criticized United Nations member states for selective application of international law. Now, what could this possibly be about? Could it be about China? No, it's not about China. What could this be about? Well, Zane Dangor has criticized member states for selective application of international law at a conference in Bogota, Colombia, emphasizing the need for universal accountability. Now, remember that phrase, universal accountability. It's going to come back to bite this gentleman in the backside. He condemned Israel's violations in Gaza and for ignoring International Court of Justice and UN rulings, and urged an immediate ceasefire, justice, and global cooperation. Well, I'm all for a ceasefire. He said, we should not pick and choose which binding orders of the ICJ to abide by and which to set aside or simply ignore. That has been a constant refrain from the global south, that we all need to be held equally accountable. Really? That's interesting. Except that Mr. Dangor is a hypocrite. Where is his outrage at China ignoring the International Court of Justice decision against Beijing's imperialist actions in the South China Sea? The communist 9-line fantasy is something they continue to follow, despite the court ruling against them. They simply ignored it. Mr. Dangor appears to have no problem ignoring ICJ decisions that go against the global south when it's convenient. Funny how the global south forgets decisions that go against them. Enabling Israel to simply ignore decisions of the apex courts and the United Nations with no consequence is negatively impacting the integrity of international law, including international humanitarian law and the organizations tasked with their administration. International humanitarian law that prevents genocide, that prevents war crimes, that prevents horrific actions against civilians. Well, that went really well in Korea, worked really well in Cambodia with Pol Pot, and of course in Uganda when the Indians were attacked, or in Rwanda when 850,000 people were butchered. Shall I continue? Oh, Bosnia, we talk about that one too. Yeah, these courts and these decisions seem to have very little effect, so what is he upset about? And by the way, what decision is he referring to? What's he talking about? Well, what he's talking about is these are opinions issued, not court judgments. Dangor claimed that an emergency meeting took place a year after the General Assembly passed a resolution that affirmed the ICJ advisory opinion that found that Israel's presence in the occupied Palestinian territories to be unlawful. Okay, what apex court judgment has been ignored? None. That was a General Assembly vote on an advisory opinion, not a court judgment like the 9-line decision against China was. An advisory opinion. Now, opinions carry weight, but it's not a court judgment. So get the terminology correct. Folks, these New World Order stooges ignore their own laws, international agreements, the International Criminal Court, and the International Court of Justice until they want something from them, which is the case here with Israel and Gaza. Israel is a sovereign state. Jerusalem has responded under the United Nations Charter in self-defense after being brutally attacked. Case closed. One can certainly argue the nature of the conflict, its duration, its horrific impact on civilians, but the right to self-defense is embodied in the UN Charter. The right to claim international waters thousands of miles from your shoreline, China, is not. He continues, as the humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate, we are witnessing continued and urgent calls from UN member states and the international community for a ceasefire in Gaza. Well, we've got a ceasefire in Gaza. What planet are you living on? Trump negotiated a ceasefire. This meeting is another urgent call for the genocide to end and for the international community to act collectively. Well, he's talking about two separate things. For the conflict to end and for a ceasefire. Well, there is a ceasefire. By the way, who declared a genocide? The International Court of Justice has not handed down any such judgment. That's Mr. Dangor's opinion. Dangor stated that we seek to stop the bloodshed and immediate ceasefire, and we want negotiations towards a just peace. A just peace requires justice, and this requires that international law must be respected. So what is this just peace that you seek, Mr. Dangor? Does it involve International Criminal Court charges for Hamas leadership and rank and file for the crimes against humanity? The war crimes? Does it? Negotiations with whom? A terrorist organization whose stated goal, right there in their charter, is the slaughter of Jews and the elimination of the state of Israel? That's the side you choose to endorse? Mr. Dangor, you are not sitting on the side of the angels. Meanwhile, folks, let's take a little closer look at his home country of South Africa. South Africa's government is in violation of its own 1996 constitution, never mind going to the United Nations Charter or referring South Africa to the International Court of Justice for human rights violations. Chapter 9, paragraph 3 states that the state may not discriminate directly or indirectly against anyone on one or more grounds, including race, gender, sex, pregnancy, marital status, ethnic or social origin, color, sexual orientation, age, disability, religion, conscience, belief, culture, language, and birth. Yet South Africa continues to increase the number of race-based laws that openly and unashamedly discriminate based on race, limiting education, employment, and business opportunities based on gender, white males, and race, white South Africans, while also openly discriminating against white Afrikaners in a cultural genocide by renaming settlements founded and built by Afrikaners, not others, basically stealing their cultural heritage. Mr. Dangor needs to focus on his own house and get it in order before complaining about sovereign states that do not bend to his worldview. Will another state take South Africa to ineffectual ICJ? Seems unlikely. Also, the hypocrisy of Mr. Dangor and the ANC-led government of national unity is gobsmacking. Where was the ANC in joining Gambia's groundbreaking genocide case against Myanmar in 2019 at the ICJ? Where is the ANC in charging China for genocide against the Uyghurs, Muslims? The ANC silence on the war crimes committed by Ethiopia in Tigray is also deafening. It seems the only time the ANC-led government is concerned about the International Court of Justice is when they get a chance to hate on the Jewish state. And I think that speaks volumes about what's going on here, folks. This has very little to do with the court, with judgments, with international law, with international norms, and everything to do with the ANC's love affair with terrorist organizations, whom they support unashamedly, unabashedly. Iran, Hamas, you're not on the side of angels. Mr. Dangor, before you criticize Israel with gross exaggerations with the things you're saying, take a look closer at home where your own government consistently violates its own constitution and violates basic human rights. What say you, South Africa, Mzansi world? Cheers.